Look, the trade-off we've been making since Prime Minister is enabling the brightest to be successful in order to benefit the majority. For those reasons, vote prop. I'm going to do 3 things in today's speech. First of all, I want to make 2 observations on op stance. Second of all, I want to move on to our first clash about is letting these exceptional students succeed a good thing. Third of all, then, I want to move on to the second clash about does op actually help better the community as a whole. First of all, then, 2 observations on op stance. The first thing I would note is that they probably can't fund the brilliant students and the slower ones at the same time due to underfunding coming from most education charities, because obviously if the charity had enough money to do both, we probably wouldn't be debating over the trade-off or which to pick. Second of all, even if they are able to fund like both, we already told you that the funding would be severely diluted as well as severely spread out, because you have to spread out to more people, meaning that on average each student how much money they're going to get is probably significantly less. Clash 1 then is letting these exceptional students succeed a good thing, because I think their main push was to say that there's this principle of equality, that we need to let everyone succeed. Yes, sure, there is a principle of equality within society, but what we've been telling you as Prime Minister is that there also is a principle of meritocracy and capitalism that exists within society. That is to say, within the status quo, we already make it a societal norm that whoever works the hardest or whoever is the most exceptional deserves more help, deserves more money, deserves more help in general. And I think this is valid to continue by those principles. Second of all, I would note that it's not like we're stripping these slower students of education. Obviously, they can still continue education. It just means that they wouldn't get that much support from charities, etc. It doesn't mean that their quality of education would be really, really less anyways. Second of all, then, under this clash, we also tell you that there is a practical outcome as well, that we tell you that these students are probably going to have an incentive to give back to their community for example, when they go outside and they become successful businessmen. We tell you that they probably have an incentive to come back for a few reasons. But then the LO basically responds by saying that there is no incentive to help because of pressures. First of all, I'm not really sure what kind of pressure they're even talking about, because if anything, there must be some kind of pressure coming from their poor community to pay back and to come home and give back money, since that was the community that raised you up, etc. Second of all, this doesn't engage with the 4 structural reasons we gave to you in DPM as to why you have an emotional connection to this community, given the fact that you've grown up here, that you've had a lot of emotional connections with this place, and that your family is literally there as well. Third of all, even if you don't buy that, I tell you that there's probably an economic incentive to come back to this community either way, because obviously I think starting up programs in impoverished places where there's A, less competition from other companies, B, more space and capacity to conduct projects, probably means that these successful businessmen, businesswomen would probably also have an incentive to come back either way. Second clash then, does op actually help the community? Because we told you that 2 things. First of all, we told you that there's already a lack of funding within educational charities, which is why we're debating whether we should fund the exceptional students or the other students. But second of all, we told you that this already limited funding is already exacerbated the moment op tries to fund all people at the same time. What this means, what we've been telling you from the start, is probably means that this funding is going to be extremely spread out and extremely less value per person. They tell you that A, charities really don't lack funding. No, we told you that if charities have enough funding, A, we wouldn't be debating about the trade-off funding exceptional students or poorer students or slower students. Second of all, if it was true that charities had sufficient funding, then problems presumably would be solved. The problem is they aren't, because if charities had billions and billions of dollars of money, then presumably they try and help everyone, right? Then presumably we wouldn't have so many poor people walking on the street. The third thing is, if charities have sufficient funding, why is their impact literally about giving more money to charities? Obviously, this kind of contradicts. But second of all, we already told you that the reason many people don't like charities is because of untransparent funding or results, because people really don't see the impact that UNICEF has on the world, for example. I have no idea how many people they've actually helped. But third of all, even if they have funding, even if charities have enough funding, we already told you that on their side, they're not going to help many people, because they have to spread their funding around on a lot of places that severely dilutes the funding. But the second thing that LO says is that they get to save everyone and they get to help everyone instead of just like a select population. Obviously, we've been telling you that this is not true from the very start because you have to spread out the funding that much. Means that, like, for average, one student is going to get severely less, meaning that they're probably not going to be able to grow that much. But they really haven't engaged with that, so please engage. But the last thing, but how does this change on our side? Because obviously, I think it's very clear because we don't have to fund everyone. We only have to fund a select population of the students. But B, I think these students are also more likely to succeed given the fact that they're already exceptional, meaning that I think like we can get results faster and better. But even if you don't believe that, our DPM extension literally tells you 2 reasons as to why you get more funding from charities coming from our side. A, we already told you because you get better results from exceptional students, meaning that people have more faith in charities and they believe that charities can actually like help people. Second of all, we think it also changes the perception people have of the poor community. It's not that they're dumb, it's because they don't have enough resources, etc., which means that people are more likely to invest in them because like they realize that they do have the potential to grow. DLO response is basically that you can just set up checks and balances for charities to help solve the transparency problem. The problem was never really about the transparency, but it was that people don't check or they don't really see the results that charities have that much. This is to say that charities say that they donated $10 million to help poor communities, but you never really saw how many people they helped or how these people were helped. Coming from our side, when you already allow the exceptional students to succeed, people can literally see results. These people from poor communities came and they're billionaires, or at least they have like a lot of influence around the community, they have like a lot of money, or they're relatively successful. This is the point in which people believe charities more. But lastly, I want to make the trade-off clear that we've been willing to help in the first place. The trade-off is that we're willing to take the trade-off of we're willing to take the trade-off of having emerging extremely successful business people rise up from the poor community, as opposed to their benefit of having marginally helping the majority of the population, for two reasons. A, we told you that because these exceptional students will succeed, this means that they have bigger changes and more interesting stories, whereas marginal differences within people don't really change society. We already told you because you're able to see the direct and extreme impacts of charity, which makes people want to donate. Second of all, we already told you that these more successful students can come back to the community and will come back to the community due to emotional and economic ties. This means that they're willing to give back to the community. But however, the capacity for a marginally benefited student to give back is probably less. Because we gave you the comparative and because we clearly won both of the clashes, I think definitely it's a prop win. Thank you.